John Miller was a third-generation farmer. His family farm was located in the heart of Iowa, where endless fields of corn stretched to the horizon. Every morning, before the first rays of the sun, he was on his feet, a habit inherited from his father and grandfather. That July morning, John, as usual, went out to check his crops. The air was filled with the scent of earth and ripening corn. Morning dew glistened on the leaves of the plants, reflecting the first rays of the sun. The farmer walked slowly along the edge of the field, carefully examining his crop. Suddenly, something caught his attention. There were strange footprints in the center of the field, large patches of crushed corn forming an almost perfect circle. John stopped, staring intently into the distance. His heart began to beat faster. In 25 years of farming, he had never seen anything like it. Overcoming his anxiety, John headed for the center of the field. The closer he got, the more distinct the footprints became. These were not just flattened plants. The corn was laid in a complex geometric pattern of concentric circles. It was as if a giant invisible hand had carefully bent each stalk to the ground without breaking a single one. John's mind flashed through all the stories he had heard about mysterious crop circles. Stories that he never attached importance to, considering them to be the inventions of impressionable people. Now standing in the middle of his own field, he couldn't find a rational explanation for what he saw. When John returned home, he found that the phone line was down. It was strange. The connection never failed in clear weather. What seemed even more strange to him was that his old radio receiver, which was standing in the kitchen, suddenly began to spontaneously change stations, making strange crackles and hisses. Electronics had never been John's strong suit, but even he understood that something unusual was going on. John couldn't sleep last night. He was sitting on the porch with a shotgun in his lap, peering into the darkness. Around midnight, his old Labrador, Buck, usually calm and phlegmatic, suddenly began to run restlessly around the yard, barking loudly in the direction of the cornfield. John turned on a powerful flashlight and aimed the beam towards the field, but did not notice anything suspicious. Rumors spread quickly in the town. By the evening of the next day, Miller's farm had become a place of pilgrimage. Curious neighbors, reporters from a local newspaper, even several ufologists from a neighboring state. Everyone wanted to see the mysterious circles with their own eyes, take photos, and interview John. Among the visitors was Elizabeth Carter, a professor of astrophysics at the State University. Unlike ufologists, she did not rush to conclusions, methodically studying the crushed corn with the help of various devices. John watched her with interest. There was a real scientific thoroughness in her actions. Professor Carter took several soil and plant samples for laboratory analysis. She also carried out measurements of the radiation background and electromagnetic fields. The results were unexpected. An increased level of static electricity was detected in the epicenter of the circle, which gradually decreased towards the edges of the pattern. The farmer silently watched what was happening, feeling uncomfortable from such attention. He was always an introverted man, preferring solitude and the silence of the fields to noisy companies. Now his privacy had been violated. On the third day after the discovery of the circles, another strange event occurred. A swarm of bees appeared on John's farm from nowhere. Thousands of insects circled over the field, forming constantly changing shapes in the air. The local beekeeper, Harry Peterson, could not explain this phenomenon. The bees did not behave as usual, as if obeying some external influence. By evening, the bees had disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. But the next morning, residents of the surrounding farms discovered that all their hives were empty. The bees had left their homes. A day later, the bees returned, but local farmers noticed that the honey in the honeycomb had acquired an unusual bluish hue and a strange metallic taste. No one dared to eat it. Some talked about aliens, others about atmospheric vortices, and others suspected a hoax. John didn't know what to believe. But deep down, it wasn't so much the origin of the circles that worried him as the harvest. Crushed corn meant losses that his small farm could barely afford. The strangeness continued. Cows on Ed Thompson's neighboring farm suddenly began to produce twice as much milk as usual. The analysis showed an increased content of calcium and unusual enzymes. The veterinarian was puzzled, but assured that the milk was safe to consume. The local Cedar River, which flowed near John's farm, overnight changed the color of the water from the usual brownish to crystal blue. Environmentalists have not found any pollution. On the contrary, the water has become cleaner than ever. Fish species that had never been found in these places before suddenly appeared in it. The Weather Service reported unusual atmospheric phenomena over the district. The northern lights in the middle of summer, in latitudes where it has never been observed. The night sky above Miller's farm lit up with flashes of green and purple, creating a fantastic sight that attracted photographers from all over the state. A week has passed. Interest in Miller's farm gradually waned. People returned to their daily activities, and journalists found new sensations. John was relieved when the last car with curious visitors left his property. On Sunday evening, as the sun was setting, John was sitting on the porch of his house, sipping a cold lemonade. An old pickup truck appeared from the side of the road, which he immediately recognized. It was the truck of Bill Harrison, his next-door neighbor, whose farm was 5 miles to the east. Bill parked outside the house and walked slowly up to the porch. He was holding an object wrapped in a cloth in his hands. John nodded to his neighbor, inviting him to sit next to him, and silently handed him a can of lemonade. They sat in silence, watching the last rays of the sun gilding the tops of the corn. Finally, Bill broke the silence. He unwrapped the cloth and showed John a strange device, a metal cylinder with cables and some electronic elements attached to it. "I found this in my field this morning," Bill said. "I think it belongs to Tommy Johnson and his friends from college." Tommy was the son of a farmer from a neighboring county and an engineering student. Bill explained that the device was part of a meteorological experiment conducted by a group of students. They launched homemade probes strapped to small parachutes to collect temperature and humidity data at different altitudes. John carefully examined the device, gradually realizing what had happened. A strong wind must have carried one of the probes far from the launch site. The parachute, descending, captured the air currents and created a funnel, which crushed the corn into regular geometric patterns. But this theory only explained crop circles. What about the strange behavior of electrical appliances, the unusual behavior of bees, and changes in the quality of milk and water in the river? John shared his doubts with Bill, who admitted that he was also puzzled by these phenomena. The next day, representatives of the National Atmospheric Administration appeared in the town. They installed sophisticated equipment on John's farm and announced that they were conducting a routine study of thunderstorm activity. But the farmer noticed how one of the scientists secretly collected soil samples in exactly the places where the circles were found. At night, John saw several people in protective suits entering his field and installing some kind of sensors. He wanted to come out and demand an explanation, but something stopped him. Intuition told him that it was better to observe from the outside. The farmer felt both relief and mild disappointment when he met Tommy and his professor the next day, who confirmed the story of the weather probe. The mystery was solved, and the explanation turned out to be simple and prosaic. No aliens, no supernatural phenomena. But something was bothering John. He noticed how the professor and Tommy exchanged strange glances when he asked them about other unusual phenomena. They insisted that there was no way a weather balloon could have caused all these anomalies, but John noticed something like hidden concern in their eyes. The students apologized for the damage and offered compensation. But John refused the money, asking only one thing: that they explain to him how their device works. Thus began an unexpected collaboration between a farmer and young scientists. John gave them part of his land for experiments. In exchange, the students developed a weather monitoring system for him, which made it possible to plan sowing and harvesting operations more accurately. After a few months, all the strange phenomena stopped as suddenly as they began. The river returned to its normal state. Bees began to produce normal honey. Cows gave the usual amount of milk. Even the northern lights no longer appeared over the farm. By the end of the summer, 8 weather stations had been installed around the perimeter of Miller's farm. A simple combination of circumstances, a strange circle in the field, led to the introduction of new technologies that made John's farm one of the most advanced in the area. One day, while sorting through old things in the attic, John found his grandfather's diary. On one of the yellowed pages, he found an entry dated July 1947, exactly 75 years ago. In it, Grandfather described exactly the same crop circles and strange phenomena that occurred in the area during the week. At the end of the recording, there was a phrase: "The military explained everything with a weather probe." Maybe it is, but I know what I saw that night over the field. John closed his diary and stared out the window for a long time at his field, where mysterious circles had recently been discovered. Some mysteries might be better left unsolved.